What is up, bros? Be Josh here, and welcome to Chapter 5. Finally, at Chapter 5, Episode 1 of our Road to Tier 10 series. Our series, we're going down every line in World War ships from the lowest tier all the way to the highest tier to see what we learn along the way and if anything kind of surprises us. And we just got done with the IGN cruisers. We just got the Nassau. So now it's time for the next line, which you guys have all chosen. A lot of people wanted to see this. It was between a couple of the battleship lines, and the German battleship line has come up. So we have officially started that, and as you can see, we're all the way up to the Barents, so that means we can do the low tiers. And this line is a good one to kind of go over right now, because I feel, we've talked about this a lot on stream actually, is the German line, the German battleship line, one of the most popular lines in this entire game. There's a lot of really good battleships on this line, but it's one that's been extremely power crept. Its identity has been kind of lost, and so that's one thing why I'm kind of looking forward to going down this whole line and seeing, is it still playable compared to everything else? Does it bring anything else to the game? Is there anything that I would say, yes, you definitely want to go down this? So this is one I'm actually quite anticipating going down, especially into the tier 6, tier 7, tier 8, in that area, to really see if the German battleships still have a spot in this game. Now, obviously, they have their own playstyle, so people will like that, but I really want to see how it just compares to everything else. And one of the things is, this is our second battleship line that we're going down through this series, because we've gone down the French battleship line, so we have a really good side-by-side comparison of battleship versus battleship, how we felt, how they do. It's a really, really good thing to kind of have. Now, remember, this is the first time that it will be kind of faster to go through. One of the main things, and I talked about in the last video in this series, is we have the new type of premium time. So we are going to be getting 15% more from the XP per battle. So this is going to speed up the process. It's much easier to just keep this instead of waiting for this to go down for 8 days, buy time with this, and to keep that kind of linear. Also, we are in the clan, my main clan for our community. We're helping out with naval battles, so we have to do that. So we got the bonuses there. So the number of games to get through the ships is going to be a little bit lower. So just going on, this is going to be the first one with that bonus. Basically, we're getting like 20% more XP per game, so it's definitely going to speed it up. But it's just easier to kind of keep that than leaving the clan or restarting the entire series over. But anyways, let's get to the battleships. So this isn't a crazy long video. But the Nassau, the tier 3, this thing was... If you've ever played the Nassau, if you've ever played low tiers, this thing is an absolute beast, and instantly you get an idea of what this ship and what this line is capable of doing. And what that means is you're going to have some pretty dang good armor, and you have secondaries, and you have guns that really aren't consistent with their dispersion, but when they hit hard. So that is the kind of the identity of this ship, but you're still a battleship, so you can blow cruisers out of the water. So that's always awesome. One of the best things is, and a good thing for the line, but I don't recommend this line for new players, and that is, it doesn't really teach you how you need to protect yourself from a citadel. German battleships, they have the turtleback armor, so you can actually kind of go broadside. You will take a lot of damage, but it's not citadel damage like you would on other ships. So I would say this is probably a line I would wait to go down if you're looking for a battleship line to go down. German battleships definitely aren't the best one to start out with. I always recommend either the IGN or the USN to start out with. But the German one, they have a cool identity in the fact that they have secondaries. This is one that's instantly you can feel the secondary skills. You can feel the secondaries popping off, especially with the low tier destroyers when they are pushing in close to you. Most of them have to get within spotting range, and we have that secondary range that is actually a decent range for a low tier at 4 kilometers. So when they start popping off, you can definitely start going. Again, we didn't have AFT or anything like that, so we couldn't bump them out anymore on that range. Definitely something we're probably going to start doing once we get that 10-point captain. I think at the time we only had, like, we start a brand new captain off every time at 0 points. So with this one, we had, I think we were at 3 points by the time we got done with this, and we got done pretty quick. But the guns were solid for a tier 3 battleship. It's pretty dang beefy. It's a beefy boy for a tier 3 battleship, and actually a lot of fun. The guns are German, so they're not going to be as consistent, but one thing you have is a decent little reload on them, as well as the ship itself being pretty agile, pretty quick, I guess, for a tier 3 battleship. And one of the best parts is you'll get through the ship extremely fast because it's a tier 3 battleship. But just checking out the stats compared to everything else as we can bounce over to these stats. And again, one of the best things is we have a comparison to go off of with the French battleships. So the Nassau, we got done with it in 2 games, and one thing I want you to kind of look at when we're seeing these is the average damage we had in these games. Got through in 2 games. Again, one of the rules of this series is we have to get everything researched. So no matter what, we are going to research every module and then go on to the next ship. So we of course had to get the hull, the range module, and then the speed boost for this one. So that's something we just kind of have to do with this series. But going back to the stats, as you can see, as a tier 3 battleship, we were averaging 62,500 damage per game. Again, it only took us 2 games. One of our games, we almost did 70,000. But this thing is just consistent and fun, and you can be really, really aggressive with it. And that's one thing I really liked it. Comparing it to the Tyrion, which actually took an extra game. Again, we will be going through these a bit faster, but averaging over 3 games, less than 40,000. So 2/3 the average damage that we had. Again, our highest damage in that one was 53, almost 54,000, compared to the Nassau, which was a beefy boy at almost 70k for one of those games. So really enjoyed this ship. It was a lot of fun. Again, right around the tier 3s tend to be 2-3 games max. Again, the Tenri only took us 2, but we averaged 40k. A few of the other ones have gone pretty quick as well. This one took us, so the Pan Asian Destroyer actually took us a tad longer, took us 4 games. So, but anyways, still a really fun one, and enjoyed the Nassau. And that moved us on to the next ship, which is the Kaiser. Now, the Kaiser to me is another good part. It's a good step into really getting the identity of the German battleship line, which tends to be, well, this is the first time you felt AA. You actually had the ability to shoot down some planes. Now, you weren't clearing the skies by any means, but you definitely were seeing an impact of AA. And especially at tier 4, you're starting to see a lot of CVs. Most of the times we had double CVs because that's where everyone's starting to play anyway. So it was kind of nice to be able to plunk a couple planes out of the sky. Definitely avoided us taking some damage and was having a lot of fun doing so. The Kaiser on this early portion of this line tends to be... A lot of people don't like the Kaiser. Again, you get that German feel of the guns where the guns are inconsistent, the dispersion is off. It can definitely be a bummer when you're playing it because you're like, I'm aiming right where I want it. If you could just hit there, that'd be nice. And it definitely doesn't happen. And this is where you kind of started to feel that you didn't quite have the punching power. 305mm guns. This is where you kind of get that sense of battleship versus battleship. You're going to start aiming a tad higher to do consistent damage because the punching power of these guns isn't quite there. German battleship line is kind of known for firing relatively quickly, but you're not having the biggest caliber. Now, there is one on the line like the Koenig now that has big shells, but only 6 of them. This one was firing 5x2, but on the sides you do have the swing, so they don't get on it. But you don't get all 5 on them. You're going to fire 8 at max. But you do kind of not have that big punching ability that you kind of lack. So you're still extremely good against cruisers. You're going to blap those off the map. But battleship versus battleship, you're going to start getting that consistent damage on those salvos. But this is where, again, you're going to use that German battleship armor where you aren't going to be taking any citadels, angling when you can, getting those secondaries into the fight again, whenever those destroyers, especially I like running into Clemsons, even though they had their scary torpedoes, you could still, or Clemsons or Nelsons, or not Nelsons, the other USN destroyers, you could get in and really start kind of beating them up and picking on them a little bit because you had the ability to kind of go away because you're not too slow. 23 knots isn't really too bad for a battleship. And you can kind of kite away, use your secondaries, use your guns, again, switching back and forth and using that reload. But you did start to notice that battleship versus battleship, you're not going to get big citadel salvos like you would in some others. You just started to get that nice, juicy, consistent damage when it's battleship versus battleship unless you're really close. Overall, though, I really enjoyed the Kaiser. I think it's a good tier 4 battleship. Now, is it the best? No, but you definitely can do some damage. If you can actually look at the stats of our Kaiser, we averaged almost 68,000 damage per game over 4 games, so not too bad. Again, comparing that to, you can find the tier 4, the Corbeil. Took us 4 games as well, but 66. So we actually averaged a tad higher, and the Corbeil is actually pretty solid, tier 4 as well. But this one almost 68, so a tad higher on that. Again, a good thing to have a comparison there, battleship versus battleship. We won every game, and I felt like we were really able to do a lot of damage that happened in these games. I felt like it was very consistent. We were able to go in there and do a lot, have a good impact, because at this tier, when there's a battleship that actually has some good target awareness, you can definitely see an impact on the game. Having a battleship at this tier, obviously everyone's learning the game at tier 4. Having a battleship that just is willing to shoot a couple salvos at a DD can make a massive difference for most of your games, and just getting that kind of that smarts that you kind of get later in game. Obviously, I've played the game a decent amount, so I'm playing low tier, but having that right target selection, you were able to have a very big impact on this game. Just even finishing ships off, targeting the right ships. A battleship has a lot of influence, especially in low tiers, because you are so tanky. And still, even at tier 4, you go against a lot of destroyers that actually have a tough time torping you, because most of the time they have to get detected to do so. Now, obviously, there are some IGN destroyers that will cause you some problems. You can still stealth torp, but still, the majority of them have to make an advance on you, and they will get spotted before their torps. So, honestly, I like the Kaiser. I think it's definitely a solid tier 4. This is the upside, is you start to get some AA on these battleships, which is kind of nice. Secondaries are still there, good tanking ability. The guns are pretty solid with a relatively fast reload. The ship itself is pretty agile, but you do kind of start to feel the lack of punching power. This is something that the German battleships kind of have, and a lot of them, is lack of punching power, but they have the reload to kind of make up for it. The tier 4, I found it to be a lot of fun. We got through in 4 games, and I actually quite enjoyed it. I think 2 of those games we were stock because we went for the range module. Again, we took all of the modules on this. And one thing you will notice a lot with this, especially battleships, is I will go for the range first almost every time, because I want to be pumping out that damage as fast as possible. Propulsion will kind of get you to places quicker, but as you see, 22.3 for normal, 23 for that XP. I think it was about equal to getting the range, and the base range was 14.5. This bumps it out to 16. You'll notice when I'm going up through these, again, we play all these live on stream, twitch.tv/mujaysh. Come hang out if you guys want. I'll put a link down below. We do all these live, play them all live on stream, and you'll see me almost always go for the range first. I want to get those guns into the fight as fast as possible, and really kind of enjoyed the Kaiser. I think it's a pretty solid ship. I'm interested in what you guys have to think about the Kaiser. This is something that either people love or they hate. You do get the inconsistency of the gun, but overall I think it's a pretty solid tier 4. Now, again, the Koenig at tier 5. This thing is a good battleship. This is a very solid battleship. I really like this ship, and I think the majority of people kind of get a breath of fresh air from going from the Kaiser, who didn't like it, to the Koenig. It's just so much more consistent. Again, though, it's kind of just a bigger, beefier boy of the Kaiser, honestly. It's just a better version of it. But now you're going into tier 5 matchmaking. Again, tier 5 matchmaking has some of the worst matchmaking in the entire game, because you are going against, a lot of the time, tier 7s. But as this battleship, again, that upsides is you're getting more and more AA, which is fantastic. You're getting more health, more armor, all that good stuff. You're getting a little bit quicker, a little bit more agile, but you have the same downsides. The same downsides for the Koenig as the Kaiser had is your lack of punching power. You'll notice that is a pattern of this kind of line. You will obliterate cruisers. That's awesome. You'll be a threat to destroyers because you have that fast reload and those good secondaries. But battleship versus battleship, you will see the lack of punching power compared to something else at this tier, even like the New York or even the Congo, where they have the bigger shells. They don't have the 305s. The German line gets that lacking, that punching, the lack of punching power. You just feel like you're in a battleship. You want to wreck things. You want to hit citadels on battleships. You want to overmatch stuff. Not so much with this line. You really have to kind of pick where you're aiming a tad more. Maybe raise the aim up a little bit, get off the waterline just a tad, and try to hit that, maybe that juicier upper armor belt. I wouldn't quite say the superstructure, but a lot of time, if there's some angle, you're going to be bouncing a lot of your shells. So you just have to be aware a tad more with this line. Again, I don't think it is the easiest or the most new player friendly line in this game. It does take a little bit of time, but the nice thing is you are starting to fire 10 shells on your salvo and with the swing turret in the middle. So that is definitely nice. There was a game that we had where we were basically, it was kind of over, but I felt comfortable going against, like, I think it was 1 versus 6. There's 2 DDs chasing me. There's battleships, there's cruisers, all kinds of stuff. The Koenig can actually pick on a lot of ships at one time because you put the secondaries on one. You're throwing a salvo out on the cruiser, taking out the cruiser, taking out the destroyer, pumping damage into the battleships. And if you need to, you have the speed and agility to get a ram off if you need, get your turrets going. Expert marksmanship was fantastic. I think right about this time, our captain was about, I think, 7 points or something like that. So we had gone at this point, I think we went preventive maintenance. I think we went expert marksmanship first. No, I think we went expert marksmanship first, and then we went basics of survivability. I don't know what I'm gonna pick at the 10 point yet. I might actually go with AFT just to get the secondary range. I think it's probably needed a little bit, but we went with that instead. But again, felt like just a better version of the Kaiser, and that's kind of a cool thing. It was a smooth transition if you played the 4. I think the Nassau is kind of its own little ship at tier 3. Kaiser, you kind of start to feel like a common ground in your battleships, and then right into the Koenig, it's just a better version of the ship. You feel comfortable. If you played the Kaiser, you get just a more consistent battleship. But the thing about the German battleship, again, good tanking, good AA, good secondaries, agility, speed, you have those. One of the things you lack, though, consistency on your gun, but you make up for it on the reload. So that's the pattern you're going to see me say, as well as see when you play these lines themselves. At tier 5, though, I think we did a pretty solid job playing this ship. And when we go over to the stats really quick, if you just look at the Koenig, a 64% win rate took us 11 games, so that's kind of expected, but 76,000 average damage for a tier 5 battleship is pretty dang good. If we switch over, now we had a tough time in the Bretagne, so this took us a little while, but I mean, when we were averaging what was that, 76, we were averaging 20,000 plus more damage a game with the German battleship than we did with the Bretagne. We had a tough time with the Bretagne. I think the Bretagne, we were bottom tiered almost every one of these, so it was a tough grind for us going through that. But the Koenig is super solid, good win rate, good average damage, and we were averaging ships 1.6. That's pretty dang good. We were getting Krakens. We had 100,000. I think we actually had 2. I think maybe just a tad under, or just 1, I guess. But 100,000 damage game at tier 5 battleship. You are gonna start doing some good, consistent, chunky boy damage salvos with this battleship. It is pretty solid at tier 5. Definitely one I would say is even a keeper. And if there ever was, again, a tier 5 rank sprint, I think the Koenig is a fine pickup. You can actually do quite a lot of damage and have some good success. Again, we weren't really able to do too much with the captain build. We were still pretty low on points, but really did enjoy this. Again, going through the modules, we did pick up the range module first, and then of course picked up the rest of them. Now the Koenig is going to be one of the first ones that there is 3 different hulls, so it did take us a little bit extra to get all of these for XP wise, but those 305s, still having the good punching power against cruisers, being able to overmatch a lot of cruisers, but downside is the overmatching or trying to really pick on some battleships. One of the nice things about the German, though, again, 26-second reload, that's without any adrenaline rush, that's pretty damn good, is you tend to not get too many overpens because they are a smaller caliber. So that is kind of something in their favor. You are going to be extra dangerous against cruisers, and having that fast reload, one of the fastest, if not the fastest at this tier actually, but extremely good at tier 6. And of course we're on to the Baron and into the mid tiers after that. But the low tier for German, I actually find these quite fun, and I think they're a lot of fun to play. Again, I can't emphasize enough, I don't think this is a very good line for brand new players. If you are a new player, I recommend playing like IGN or USN. I even recommend IGN just a tad more because USN battleships, although a fantastic line, they tend to be a tad slow for people. So picking up the IGN line, they tend to be a bit quicker, so it's easier learning the class. They tend to be, it's just a tad faster to get into positions. The German line, though, if you've played a couple other battleship lines, this line is fantastic. It's to this point at least, getting into the tier 6, and the rest of it might be a different story. But it felt good. You felt good at doing your job. Again, we're putting up good damage, which is always awesome. The Nassau tier 3 is definitely a bully battleship at that tier. And then the Kaiser, whether you like it or not, it's still a solid battleship at tier 4. You have some good matchmaking at tier 4, and you can make things happen. And then the Koenig is also a solid battleship. You'll enjoy it as well. And so I'm hoping that this kind of... Now, I wasn't too surprised that I enjoyed these ships. I knew I liked these ships. The things I'm really excited for is later in the line, so we're going to have to wait for those to see how they fare. But right now, still, even though that we talked about the German battleship line kind of losing its spot in the game a little bit just over time for power creep, I still feel like at least the low tiers are very solid for their tier by tier, and still a lot of fun to play. So on the next episode, we'll get into the mid tiers. That'll be the Bayern, the Gneisenau, and of course the big bad Bismarck. But for right now, the low tiers are done. Check them off the list, and that is the end of episode 1 for chapter 5, the German battleships for our Road to Tier 10 series. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of the low tier German battleships. Do you like them? Do you love them? Do you hate them? What do you think? Or are you going down the line yourself and getting similar results, similar thoughts on the line? I'm always interested in that. But anyways, guys, I give it a 2 thumbs up. If you want to check out this line, definitely worth. But next time, we'll see you guys in the mid tiers. That's it for me, though. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.